Emmanuel Acho is the former NFL linebacker, co-host of Fox Sports 1 Speak for Yourself, and has a new book called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Emmanuel, good to have you on. Let me start with that topic with Lamar Jackson. How is it that these defenses or a defense knows what Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are doing when they get to the line of scrimmage?
As a middle linebacker in the NFL, Dan, I can tell you it's not that complicated. What do I mean? Well, last year, Lamar Jackson took the league by storm. So many of these NFL coaches hadn't seen this spread-style run game. When I played at the University of Texas, I was playing against a guy by the name of Robert Griffin, who won the Heisman his senior year, my senior year. After you see it for a while, you understand, okay, if the back is offset to the quarterback's right and he's about 2 yards deeper than the quarterback, you're probably going to get an inside zone type of run scheme. If he's offset to the quarterback's right and he's even with the quarterback, you might get an option to the right based on depth perception of the running back, based on splits of the offense. You can pretty fairly anticipate what's going on. The problem, Dan, is simple. Last year, you only had about 3 days to prepare for Lamar Jackson if you were going to see him that week. This year, you've had about 3-4 months to prepare for Lamar Jackson all offseason. So I think you're starting to see the adjustment catching up to the Ravens.
Yeah, but if Lamar knows this, the defense knows this, then how is it that the Ravens aren't, counteracting this?
Well, because you can actually only do so many things on offense, particularly if you live within a certain scheme. See, when you're going to get up against a guy like Andy Reid, he's doing ridiculous stuff, a ton of different formations, a ton of different pre-snap shifts and moves. But when you're going against the Baltimore Ravens, they don't do so much. They just do it excellently. And that's the difference. When I was playing against the Carolina Panthers in 13, 14, and 15 with Cam Newton, preparing for them was grueling. They had thousands of formations, hyperbole, obviously, but they could run so many different things out of those formations. The Ravens, they keep it more simple. They just execute at a higher level. There's a pro to that, but also a con to that as well.
If I gave you their futures right now, Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray?
I would probably say, oh, that's so tough. Let me say Lamar Jackson. I know a lot of people are saying Kyler Murray, and I really like Kyler Murray. I probably, though, like Cliff Kingsbury and his offensive mind more than I like what they have going on in with Greg Roman and with the Ravens. Remember, this is the problem, Dan, when you talk about sports. So many people look at just the incubated team. Oh, well, give me Patrick Mahomes over Deshaun Watson. Well, sure. But what if you would have had Patrick Mahomes drafted to Bill O'Brien's Texans and Deshaun Watson drafted to Andy Reid's Chiefs? Like, it's never apples to apples when people try to make these comparisons.
And also, when we start to handicap, like, how long it takes for somebody to take that next step, and, it feels like receivers, it takes them a little while to get – the game doesn't come to them as easy as some of the other positions there. Brandon Marshall, I remember telling me, it took him 6 years for the game to kind of come to him. Quarterbacks, it's coming to you right away. DK Metcalf, it's sort of coming to him right away that if I said, I'll give you any receiver for the next 5 years, who are you taking? And most people are probably taking DK Metcalf. How is it that he slipped by everybody in the first round?
Well, as a college football analyst, remember, DK Metcalf was often injured.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown was also on that team, receiver for the Tennessee Titans. A.J. Brown was probably a better collegiate receiver than DK Metcalf, many would argue, particularly because of health. Let's also not underestimate Russell Wilson. Tyler Lockett was supposed to be a gadget guy. Tyler Lockett in the Big 12 Conference, where I played college football, he was a return ace, return specialist. He had 200 yards receiving on 15 catches just 2 weeks ago. Let's not underestimate Russell Wilson. Doug Baldwin, what was he, an undrafted free agent, turns into a perennial or a repeat Pro Bowler? Russell Wilson's also playing a great major factor in DK's success. And kudos to DK Metcalf for overachieving, if you will.
When did you start thinking about this as a career when you were playing?
Dan, I gravitate towards what I'm good at. In high school, I went to an affluent, all-white private school. I was supposed to be a national merit scholar. My parents born in Nigeria. I'm first-generation American. So, Dan, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be a nerd, go to Yale, go to Harvard. I wind up being 6'2", 240 pounds. I was like, well, I guess we'll play football. while playing football, Dan, I was like, okay, I kind of understand. I was never the fastest. I was never the strongest, but I was typically the smartest on the football field. So I said, let me get into breaking down games, breaking down tape, because it's not what you know, it's what you can get the listener and the fan to know. And I realized I'm decently skilled at that. So that's why I moved into it.
What did Christian Okoye mean to Nigeria?
Christian Okoye, obviously the great running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Everyone knows him as a Nigerian nightmare. Dan, my first email when I was a ninth grader in high school, it was Nigerian nightmare at yahoo.com. First email, my very first one. So when you say, what does Christian Okoye mean to Nigerian Americans, to Nigerian football players? He's the legacy. And that legacy has since been carried on. Think about the NFL draft, Dan. 3 Nigerian players were drafted in the first round. Obviously, Jeff Okuda, I remember him. I think Noah Igbogini, another cornerback from Auburn, and there was one more player who's slipping my mind. But think about what Christian Okoye started and how that legacy has continued to be passed down.
Emmanuel Acho, the former NFL linebacker, and he's the co-host, Marcellus Wiley, with Speak for Yourself. But the book is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. When did you think about doing the book, and why?
Yeah, Dan, after the racial tension going on in our world, I said, I have to do something to alleviate some of this. I'm a sports analyst, sure, but before I'm that, Dan, I'm a black man. And before I was even that, the world saw me as a black man. I was a human being. It's my job to leave the world better than I found it. I said, wait, I was immersed in white culture, Dan, at this all-white private school growing up. Then I was immersed in black culture in the NFL and in college. I realized there's a color and culture issue, Dan. Like black people and white people, we communicate differently. And because we communicate differently, let me try to act as a bridge to allow my white brothers and sisters to understand some questions, answer some questions that they may never ask because they don't have black friends to ask them to, or a black group, or feel comfortable. So I said, let me write this book to help educate those that want to be a part of the solution in America.
What is the, I guess, top question that we should ask, or that you want to answer?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think the top question, which is such a volatile topic, people talk about white privilege. Well, Emmanuel, I worked hard. How can you say I'm privileged? Dan, let me say this. I currently have famous person privilege. I was walking down the street in Beverly Hills, Dan. I walk into a restaurant and they say, Emmanuel, I love your show. Your meal is on me. Dan, the meal was free, not because I'm black, not because I'm 6'2", because they knew who I was. So many people in America, I submit that privilege just means you have certain access to a space or certain immunity from a space because of who you are. So when you talk about white privilege, it's understanding that in America, I have certain immunity or certain access to certain spaces. It's not saying your life hasn't been hard. It's saying your skin color hasn't contributed to the difficulty in your life. I think, Dan, there's so many visceral reactions based on terms in our current society that really turn people off. But until we open up our minds of understanding, open up our hearts to understand, we won't really see the unity that we need. And let me say this real quick. I played in the locker room for the greater part of my life. And people say, well, Emmanuel, in the locker room, people look past race. Dan, they look past religion because we're all fighting towards a common goal. But in America, the reason we have so many divides is because we're not all fighting towards a common goal. We don't all realize oppression exists, racism may exist, systemic racism exists. So Dan, if you're not fighting towards a common goal, then you end up fighting each other. And that is the difference between how in a locker room you can overlook your differences, but in the world, we struggle to.
Why is it that in the moment, there is this blowback or this anger or resentment with those, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King? I even look at LeBron James, and I shouldn't be just singling out African Americans. There are a lot of people who speak up on this topic, but it feels like it's after the fact we look back with reverence and admiration instead of in the moment. You know, I don't know how we're going to look back on Colin Kaepernick, because in the moment, and even now it's still volatile, I don't know 15, 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know how history treats him. Ali, they didn't treat him well. Martin Luther King was divisive as well. LeBron James, today is divisive to polarizing to a lot of people. Why is it we don't see what's in front of us or appreciate what's in front of us?
There's twofold. Number one, Dan, the old quote, you never know what you got until it's gone. But now let me dive a little bit deeper. No one likes to get uncomfortable in the moment. This is a sports show, so let's talk sports. University of Texas, I had a strength coach called Mad Dog Madden. He wore a huge gold chain around his neck that said Mad Dog. He was probably about 6'4", 300 plus pounds. Dan, do you think I liked my strength coach in college? Absolutely not. I didn't like when he was yelling at me. I didn't like when he was forcing me to do something I didn't want to do. I didn't like when he was making me wake up at 6 a.m. to run gassers across the football field in the hot Texas heat. Absolutely not. But as I've gotten older, I've realized, wait a second, everything he was doing for me at the time was for my benefit. But more importantly, everything Mad Dog, my strength coach, was doing for me at the time was for the greater good of the team. And I think the issue at hand is when you talk about guys like Dr. Martin Luther King, LeBron James, Muhammad Ali, the likes, what they're trying to do is for the greater good of the team, the United States, our team, which we're all on together. Now, you might not agree with some of their philosophies. You might not agree with some of their terms. I might not have agreed with all of these sets and repetitions my strength coach was making me do, but the intention was pure behind it. And I think really, Dan, we don't like to get uncomfortable. And that's why I wrote the book. And that's why we're starting to see some growth in our country.
Is there part of you that says, is my calling something above just doing sports and breaking down, is Carson Wentz good enough to be the starting quarterback for the Eagles?
Oh, I so genuinely appreciate that question. Definitely. Dan, I've realized there is a difference between your career and your calling. See, your career is what you're paid for. Your calling is what you're made for. And while my career has been sports, X's and O's, LeBron James, Carson Wentz versus Nick Foles, who is better, who is greater, my calling has been trying to bridge racial reconciliation in this world. My calling has been trying to unite my Black brothers and sisters and my white brothers and sisters. I realized, Dan, this. I didn't play in the NFL to make a lot of money or to tackle people. I didn't go to this affluent top college preparatory school and in high school to get a phenomenal education. I think, Dan, everything I've gone through in my life has led me to this moment, has led me to uncomfortable conversations with the Black man, has led me to this series, which over 70 million people have now seen in 5 months. My calling, Dan, is bigger than myself, and I'm just glad to be a vessel to be used in the moment.
The most important question I'll ask you, and the most important question you'll hear all day is, if it was you against Marcellus Wiley and only one guy, one guy got out of the octagon, who would it be?
Well, first off, it would be me because Marcellus Wiley would tire out. Okay, he doesn't work out anymore. He's a little soft around the edges, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
And though he went to Columbia, Dan, I would outsmart him because I have 2 degrees, one being in sports psychology. So I would use all his tactics against him. Don't let him fool you, Dan.
He's got old guy strength, though. He's got
He has grown man strength. With all them kids, he got grown man strength.
Good luck with the book and also with the Fox Sports 1 with the Speak for Yourself. Thank you. And tell Marcellus we said hello. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Of course. Thank you, my brother.
All right. Emmanuel Acho, the former NFL linebacker. And the book is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. This is a dialogue that he's hoped to create that's honest, straightforward, accessible to those who seek answers. A conversation that needs to happen to mend the racial divide in our world. The book, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man.